angels left their first estate to cohabitate with women in the days before the flood. And one of the things that they did was they taught mankind enchantments and root cuttings, this drug-related sorcery, the kind of things like you associate or connotate with classical witchcraft.
In every civilization, in every ancient culture, they have practiced divination. In every country and nation, humans have tried to reach the other side through meditation, rituals and incantations, astral projection, altered state communications, summon-induced hallucinations, distort perceptions, ingesting mushrooms, psilocybin, salvia, ayahuasca, DMT, the cutting of roofs, the pharmacia, sorcery and shamanism, psychics with visions, channeling beings to possess them. They interact through invitation, spirits and demons who are familiar to their victims, entering those who don't resist them through open doorways, connections from other dark dimensions. They fabricate apparitions based on expectations to people open to suggestion, a hocus pocus fascination, presenting false illuminations with one motivation: to present an imitation, an altered explanation, poisonous intoxication. The serpent's venom's like a weapon that can change and mutate to always keep you guessing. 1/3 of the angels fell, good versus evil, heaven and hell. And now we're caught in the battle between the night and the darkness in places unseen. 1/3 of the angels fell, good versus evil, heaven and hell. And now we're caught in the battle between the night and the darkness in places unseen.
Okay, guys, welcome. You're here with me, should be able to hear me, and you guys will tell me if I am louder than, well, yeah, it says I've got some buffering going on, and I don't know why, because it says I have an excellent, we'll just keep trying, and if it gets really bad, then we'll stop. But when John is talking, please let us know if one of us is significantly louder than the other one. I can fix that a lot more than just making everybody have to listen to something that's significantly louder. So just let me know if that's an issue. And real quick, I have this raffle, guys, that I know I've got dots on my face from the light, but this coin, there's a bunch of spots left, and it's the Silvertown one, and it's really pretty cool, and it's got several spots left. It's kind of hard to see because I don't want to blind you guys, and I can't do things backwards. There's a lot of spots left, and you get 2 of them if you win. 2. So you get 2 ounces of silver if you win for $6 a spot. So I want to talk about that. Make sure you guys know it's on the community part. Let me go back to that. At the top of if you're on my YouTube, you see home, videos, playlists, community, channels, and about. It's on community, and you'll see this is the first post. That's the second post. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots, and it tells you how to pay for it right there on that. So that's how you do it. And if you don't want any part of that, I'm too low? Okay. If you don't want any part of that, then you can help me with my Patreon if you feel like helping. So that's patreon.com/Ladyliberty17. And as you guys have known, if you've been here, if you're new, I have John, aka Rebel, on here. Hey John, say hi.
Hey guys, hit up Aaron's Patreon. Don't be cheap.
So oh, go. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Keep talking.
No, I said, the coin you're going to talk about or no?
I did talk about it.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay, good stuff.
So, he's got several, what is your current YouTube that you usually use? How do I find that?
I'm at Revelator Records, and it's a lot than what we do here. It's, tired, you won't get it. Here, make it okay. It's professional wrestling meets Jackass, Johnny Knoxville with music. So
okay, I can't find it. So tell me how to. I'm having a hard time.
REVEL Rebel, the number 8.
Oh, that's right.
Revelator, and then Records.
Okay, I knew I was doing something wrong.
I was doing the Alex Jones, Roddy Piper thing for a while, but I'm pretty much just doing music right now and retooling and.
So
get some more ideas.
So not the one with the kill box, or yes, the one with the kill box.
Yeah, that's it. It just says Revel. You could do it that way. Yeah, Mr. Killbox. the libtard slayer.
All right, so that's I had it up earlier, but I lost it when I did something else. So there it is, and yeah, it's different stuff, but it's still fun. And he's a musician, as you know. He made my music for the last video that we did, and I've got Revel sound all the way up and my sound turned down to try to equalize it. So if it's still too low, and then he'll just talk a little louder. And what we decided to
And
talk...
shouts out to Collagio.
Oh, I know Cologero. I don't know how to say it, guys. I can't. I had it like that
C,
day.
like C from Bronx Tale. He said it was like C.
Cologero, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, what a good dude. What a good guy.
He and I talked for 3 hours, but I only recorded 1.5.
Yeah. The first time, I mean, other than his videos, it's the first time I was to engage with him in the chat, and yeah, what a stand-up guy. You know, shouts out for that was a great show.
Yep.
Did really well.
Yes, he did, and well, I think it comes naturally to him, and he's easy to talk to. And that's why I said we talked for 3 hours, but I only recorded 1.5 hours.
Reminds me. Yeah, he reminds me of listening to Space Shot. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is a little bit more energy, I think.
Yeah, well.
So
I liked Mikey's last video about, I don't know if you saw it, about he tore apart the Big Bang Theory.
no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was a good one. You might, you know, when you have free time, you'll like it.
I do have free time pretty much, but it's getting better because the girls are back in school now. I do have free time because the girls are back in school now. I have even more free time. I want to preface why I wanted to choose this subject tonight, guys, because I do know now, but I didn't know when I chose the subject much about Revel's past or anything, and it doesn't matter. I know who he is now, and I care a lot about him. But I wanted to do this because I know a lot about this stuff for 2 reasons. I worked in the medical field, and you can say, well, that's indoctrination, and I'll agree with you. There's a lot of indoctrination and stuff I didn't understand, but I've researched now, and I'm beginning to understand. And there's a lot of stuff I do know still that I learned regardless of indoctrination or because of it. And then I've had personal experience with some of these drugs. So we're just going to kind of run through some of the simpler stuff. As much as John wants to share, Revel, I call him John Revel, he doesn't care. As much as he wants to share, he can. And so I'll just start with what I know real quick. I'm not going to bore anybody with these drugs. But I want you to understand that what's called an SNRI, or a serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, means it's inhibiting the reuptake of something that's natural in your body that makes you feel good. Norepinephrine can give you, epinephrine we know gives you a lot of energy. Norepinephrine plays a part in that, and serotonin is what makes you happy. And you will go to. I went to school not thinking that they made us believe that this was fine. And so SSRI'S are similar. They're a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and it's going, I guess, after selective serotonin. You will know these drugs as Celexa, Lexapro, Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, and Vibrid. And the SNRIs are going to be like Pristiq, Cymbalta. Cymbalta is supposed to help with pain. Fetsima and Effexor. There's probably a lot of others. I don't care what they all are. My personal history with these drugs is I took Celexa and Lexapro 3 different times in my life, and Prozac or Paxil once. And I was put on Paxil when I was 15, and I was supposed to be depressed at 15, and I'm 15, guys. And I stopped taking it. Maybe I was put on it. Yeah, I think I was put on it at like 15 or 16, and this could have had a large effect on some of my mind as it is today because it was still developing. And then I got off of it, and I've taken Celexa twice more after that, and it was because I had a lot of panic attacks and severe anxiety to where I didn't even want to leave the house, and it was worse after pregnancy, kind of like a postpartum. And I don't know that affected me negatively because I seriously couldn't leave the house. So there is a place and a time for some of these medications. We're not here to say do or don't, but we're just here to talk about them and tell you our experience with them. That is my experience with these drugs, and I know as a PA I overprescribed them, which is something I will never do again if I go back into the practice, and I will warn against and try not to do this.
What is a PA?
So a PA is a physician assistant, and it's a master's degree.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And I can still write. I can do everything, almost everything a doctor can do. In a clinic setting, I can suture, I can
Look
take
at
X-ray,
you.
I can order I can order
I didn't
prescriptions
know that.
and yeah, I can do all that. I can do a determination of your diagnosis. I can diagnose you and I can prescribe to you and I can follow up with you, and you don't ever have to see the doctor. You can see me. As a PA, we take the load off of physicians because the physicians will do like the annuals, the longer visits, and then the PAs will see like the coughs and colds and things like that in a clinic. Or a PA in the orthopedic department will do a lot of helping, but they can't. A PA can't just go and do a surgery by themselves, unless it's a really small
I did not
surgery.
know that.
And
Good for you. You go, girl.
yeah, so my indoctrination was very intense, and it was 2 years straight of school from like 8 to 5, sometimes more, especially in the clinical settings. And the second year is all clinical, and you do it straight. You don't get summer off. You don't get Christmas. I mean, you get like a week off, but you don't get a summer break really. And so I'm not military, just physician assistant regular. I went to just went to a private school. Owe a lot of money still for it, but it's the last thing I really owe money on. But it's, I can work in any specialty or not. I can do family practice, internal medicine, pain management, whatever I want to as a PA. I can work laterally. I can go into any specialty I want to, and I did. Worked in internal medicine. I worked in family practice. I worked in pain management, and I worked in mostly just internal and urgent care. So those were the main ones I did. And
Well, can you?
go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you give me some good weed?
Not at all, because those prescribers are totally different. A marijuana prescriber, anyone can do it. I think you just got to go grow it or get some.
Yeah, it's legal here. You can get your card in Michigan now from a doctor, and you can just go to any compassion club. I was just playing.
And that's true. Like, you would have to see a doctor, and there's certain now, here's the thing I learned as a PA, real quick, and I don't want to bore anybody, but what I learned is it is a business, guys. There's no two ways around it.
Oh yeah.
And
First and foremost.
right.
Yeah.
And you have to have the right complaint and the right code and all these things to get paid the right amount from an insurance company. But I was very good at getting people to come back. So I'm being brutally honest. I was very good at making money as a PA. I would listen to people, and I'd say, okay, you got a list of 10 things. Let's talk about 3 of them. We'll do some blood work, because why not? You don't need it, but let's do it. And then when you come back to go over your blood work, make sure you're normal still. We'll talk about the rest of those things you want to talk about. And it kept people coming back all the time.
If I could interject just a little, we're going to talk about some dangerous, potentially dangerous substances here, and I don't want to glorify anything. I guess we might touch on it, but what I will say is out to the legislation in Michigan and other places out west that have legalized marijuana, because what that does is it takes the hands out of the bad guys, and you can, people can say, yeah, it's a money maker business, but wouldn't you rather have the government making the money than these cartels and rats? I just think that for people with glaucoma and pain and older people that are suffering with cancer, pain management, marijuana, I think is separate from what we're going to talk about tonight. I don't know. I think you may or may not agree, but that's my thoughts on the whole marijuana thing.
Well, we know there's an opioid epidemic, and we won't go into this a lot, or we'll touch on it because it's part of this. But look into Judy Mikovits. Yeah, I'll write it down. What I would say about this is that, yes, when I worked in pain management, I preferred people try not to get on these drugs because I was very aware at how addictive these drugs were. And I watched other doctors just hand them out like candy, just like they didn't even care.
Yeah, I can look back at the Obama days and even the Bush days. It's not a Republican-Democrat thing. I think they were both, at that time, at least in my life, it was easy to go to a pain management and pay cash, and anybody could get any kind of Vicodin, methadone, Percocet. It was a free-for-all in that time. And I think that ties directly in. Donald Trump wants to build the wall. And, it's funny. I went and got some chest x-rays today and talked to a nurse. And we were talking about my leg and how they didn't give me any pain medicine. And her brother was attacked in the same way I was, and his arm was broken. And we got to talking, and she was like, well, I've noticed a change in doctors. They're not prescribing like they used to. And that's coming from a nurse, not me. And, she's like, it's harder to get those things now than it was in the time of Obama and Bush. I think, I don't think there's any coincidence, like Q says, that, when he wants to build a wall and stop this mass flux of these opiates that are killing mothers and children and sons and daughters. It's a serious topic. It really is.
One of the biggest problems I had in urgent care was pain that was unseen. Like if you came in with a broken bone, I would probably give you a few days of some like Norco, which is Lortab, which is Vicodin. I'd probably give you a couple of days of that. If I could see a broken bone or if I could see shingles or something I knew was painful, I would give you something. I was very strict. Like people did not like me when I worked in the urgent care. But if you told me you had tooth pain or a headache, you were not getting narcotics from me. I never. If it was something, and if I couldn't, and I know these things happen. I know there's tooth pain and I know there's migraine headaches, and I pray for those people. I know they're horrible. My mom gets them for days, but my mom doesn't go asking for opiates from the ER. She deals with it at home.
Yeah.
And tooth
well,
pain,
I think you would probably be in the minority there.
I know, and it's because I understood this more than anything, and I don't know why. I never had a problem with them. But what I will say is another drug that is written like candy are benzodiazepines. Oh, you have anxiety? Take this 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you understand. I'm going to say this real quick and let you talk. These are so addictive that if you try to quit them after taking them on a regular daily basis 3 times a day, you will have more anxiety than you ever had before you got on them. Are you there, John? Did we lose you?
Yeah, I got you back now.
Okay.
I got you. Yeah, well, my experience with you just kind of made the point I was going to make. In my travels in the penal systems as a young man coming up, in trials and tribulations, ins and out, one thing they took more serious than even opiates was benzo addicts and alcoholics, because the difference I was told by doctors is that with heroin and opiates, you feel like you're going to die. You're not going to die. But with benzos and alcohol, you're going to die.
That's exactly
if you
right.
don't get treated.
That's right. That's another thing.
And a lot of people would think it was the opposite. Like, well, the heroin's, it's an awful thing. It is. It's a killer. But they will tend to the people addicted on Xannies and alcohol first and foremost. They get the attention first. Now, how you want to.
Yeah, and so when I went to rehab, which I did go one time, this old doctor was still prescribing what's called Librium, very old benzo, and he was putting people back in the hospital. But they will prescribe benzos to help an alcoholic come off the alcohol, but then you've got to get them off the benzo, not unlike an opiate, a drug addiction to Suboxone or there's other Suboxone and methadone.
There's Subutex, there's Suboxone, there's methadone. Subutex they mostly give to pregnant women. It's you put under your tongue, same as Suboxone. Methadone, although it does come in pill form, it's usually monitored. You have to take it daily, or if you give clean UAs, urinalysis, will give you what's called take homes, and you earn that in my experience. And I think methadone's a trap. If I was to give anybody advice, I would say Suboxone, because it's got something in it, I think it's called nanoproxylin. It's an agent that doesn't allow you to abuse it as addicts would tend to abuse methadone. It's more controlled. People methadone on the street like candy. It's just, it's just government heroin, in my opinion. And it does serve a purpose, but for people in that state of mind that are hurting and in that, rock bottom, as they call it, it's kind of a trap. You'll find a lot of people will be on methadone their whole life and will never get off.
Yep. And I worked in pain management, and I can tell you I have detoxed people either because they wanted to, either because their insurance wouldn't cover their meds anymore, or because I refused to treat them anymore. And it is just nasty. They look like...
I'm here to tell you, it takes a special kind of demon or angel, whatever you want to call it, to beat methadone and or opiates. Once you get to that point where see what it does, people, and I know you probably understand this, but it changes the chemistry of your brain. It actually changes your thinking.
Which is what I was mentioning with the SSRI'S and SNRI'S. They're stopping something that's natural. But go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And more than that, what it will do once you go down that road, and I think a lot of musicians fall into this, or people in the entertainment want to be stars in Hollywood, all these things are available, and they make you feel good for a long time, and then they turn on. And what happens is your mind will tell you you're going to die if you don't get this. And what you become morally, and the decisions you'll make to get money to feed this demon or habit, whatever you want to call it, is a thing of horror. You know, it's a thing that only people that have been through it can really understand. And to think that it actually changes the chemical makeup of your brain. I was told once by a good counselor that however long you were on these drugs, you pretty much got to say if you're on them 5 years, it's going to take you 5 years to get normal, basically, or more. That it's not going to be a 90-day and a Band-Aid fix. You're going to have to work at this as hard as you worked at becoming a junkie. You're going to have to work that hard to unbecoming a. Does that make sense?
Yep, and it's definitely true for methamphetamines specifically, because methamphetamines will put you into a depression, and it's a dopamine lowering that happens, and the depression can last up to 2 years. So a 30-day rehab doesn't help a meth addict because they have this low and they want to feel high again. It literally depletes literally depletes their dopamine. And real quick, somebody asked about fibromyalgia. Until we know what the heck it is, it's really hard to treat. I think it's a disease of the nerves when it's real. Again, it's one of those things that you just can't qualify or quantify. You can only, qualify, you can't quantify it. I can't prove that you have fibromyalgia, and I can't prove that you don't. Just like migraine headaches and things like that. So it's really hard to treat it. Yeah. The best thing I can't even say the best. Marijuana, I would start with like something natural as much as possible, and I would the other only thing I ever gave was what do you call those there's neuro ones like Neurontin, but Neurontin's
very good. I've known people that have beat opiates with just Neurontin. I have, not personally, but I've had people tell me, hey man, I just took Neurontin and I did it, and I was, well, hey, good for you.
Yeah, so if it works, there was other like I don't know, some muscle relaxers might help, but that's probably more some of these other. But anyway, we could go on about that stuff. I don't know how to treat fibromyalgia, and nobody does. And if they do, it's going to be somebody who's in alternative health, and I don't have that knowledge yet. I'm working on it. I hope so. But somebody just recommended turmeric. Turmeric.
Yeah, that's good. I've heard good things about that. But you mentioned methamphetamine. And I think that's a totally different animal, obviously, than an opiate's going to take you down, and the meth will, if you're Breaking Bad, that's the one drug that will take you down faster. I think we've all seen the videos of where these, beautiful women or, handsome men in the span of maybe 3 to 6 months, you can look at the mug shots and you can see physically what it does to you. We've all seen the videos of people tweaking on. It turns you into something, a psychosis sets in, if you will, and the paranoia, and that's, people can say what they want about the decisions I've made for my kids, but when I found out that these things were around my kids, that's when you get clicked up, because Dad's not taking a chance with that one. And I mean any drug, but that one especially, because I've seen too many people hit that proverbial rock bottom real quick with methamphetamine.
And it is probably the hardest to get off of, probably harder than heroin, would you say?
Yeah, it's up there. I mean, they're two different things. I would say that meth you can be a functioning addict with heroin, if you want to, be deceitful and, do your thing, which I did for a long time. They call that addict, but there's no way to hide it if you're on meth. I mean, you could pick out a tweaker from a mile away. I mean, that takes over. We hear about the guy eating a guy's face off with the bath salts and the cartel stuff, and I mean the violence, sex industry, and the things that come around with meth can't be denied. I mean, it rules the porn industry, it rules music in a lot of certain circles. Because it does give you energy in the beginning, and it does make you talkative, and it does make you want to go out and party. But, like I say, there is that time when it turns on you, and there's, once that happens, good luck with that.
Okay, so I agree with you, and I'm sure everybody else does. So another interesting set of drugs are the antipsychotics. And the antipsychotics are going to
Yeah.
be your Zyprexa, your Risperdal, your Seroquel, your Clozaril, a lot of the ills. Zyprexa is another one. A lot of them
Wow.
Abilify is another one. Ones you might not know are antipsychotics. And the problem, there's 4 different types of antibiotics. One of the problems with antipsychotics is, well, do you actually need something that strong? Lithium would be another one. It's a different kind, haloperidol.
Yeah. Well, I could speak on that one. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Ben Schwigel, again. Yeah, well, okay, speak on lithium.
Well, I mean, there was a time when, I was in a certain lifestyle, and I'm not going to get on a poor me thing, but I was married and we went through a divorce, and I went to see a counselor because, I had kids and we were trying to work these things out with my ex, and they threw lithium at me, they threw Adderall at me, they threw Klonopin, Xanax, and I could tell you in the time where I was listening to my doctors and taking these, now I'm not taking away, if that works for other people, fine, it's a case-by-case basis, but for me, for the 4 years I was on them, I didn't touch my guitar once. I stopped talking to my friends. I stopped going out. I stayed home and was depressed. I felt like I was underwater, and this was all in the efforts to, I don't know if I was trying to, I was just trying to be a dad, and, my creativity was gone, is what I'm trying to say. I had no spark of life. It just kind of sucked everything out of me. And, I can't really say anything good about them. When I got off them, I mean, the pain was still there, but you just learn to deal with it in other ways. Is the lithium, I don't know, maybe some other people feel differently, but that's just my take on them.
Well, you're not wrong, because Seroquel for sure puts people fast asleep. Seroquel.
Oh yeah, that's a knockout drug. That's like GHB.
And that's one of the antipsychotics that's prescribed for bipolar. And they get stronger and stronger. I mean, you're going to see Haldol, and that's what they usually give in a hospital setting. Thorazine, Compazine can be, but it also helps with anti-nausea. So that's really a lower one. But some of these, Compazine isn't a lower one. That's a different. But it does help with, you can do it in a lower dose for nausea. Anyway, some of these, they're really strong. And another really bad side effect when I say really strong, they are definitely changing your chemicals mindset. They're changing. Now they've got the
Well,
ones,
yeah.
and then they've got ones for schizophrenia, like, what is it called? Geodon. That's one of them. There's a few different ones for schizophrenia. Now, here's the thing: is whether you have schizophrenia or demonic possession depends on, like, who knows, right? But these drugs are seriously masking so much, and you're right. I mean, they're supposed to level you out, but that means you don't have any up and you don't have any down. You're just totally like bleh. That's what they're supposed to do.
Well,
To make you a zombie.
Well, my opinion on the whole big pharma is this. I truly believe that most doctors get into the practice to help people, and they take that oath. And
Hey, John.
yeah.
You went really muffled just there. So go ahead. You're better. You're back now.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying at some point in big pharma with doctors, the money thing kicks in. And I don't know if it's a desensitization that they just see so many people with these problems that the dosage and the counseling becomes secondary, and the money machine kicks in, and the pills just get thrown out at a breakneck speed, and they're not monitored. And I think the doctors, I don't know if you call them kickbacks or whatever, there's some kind of incentive to just keep pumping them out to the public. Opinion, but I think it's pretty evident, and the amounts that have flooded our streets, and the people that are zoned out looking at CNN, drooling on themselves on antipsychotics class they fall into. I think that they're over prescribed, to say the.
Okay, you're in and out, but you said overprescribed to say the least. But so we got that part. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want to
think
talk.
big pharma kicks in at a point.
Absolutely, I agree, because I've seen doctors doing talks on certain hypertension drugs and everything like that. So I want to mention these DMT. I want to mention stuff like DMT. Now, as I understand it, I am not an expert on this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and anyone in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, and they could be wrong. I don't know. Anyway, as I understand it, DMT is in the pineal gland of our brain naturally. And there is an ability to add DMT to your life as a drug. There's synthetic DMT, and then there's regular, somehow non-synthetic, but I don't know where are you getting non-synthetic DMT? I would have to ask, right? If it comes from the pineal gland, what do you know about that?
Well, as far as DMT goes, where do we want to start? I think the traditional ayahuasca brew is made from the capi and the viridian, but the DMT is ingested on its own without being a part of the ayahuasca brew. But the effects are different. When you smoke DMT, it instantly sends the user into a psychedelic trip. Now, I'm not condoning or non-condoning the tribal use of these medicine sweat lodges that my ancestors have done for centuries. That's a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing, because let's be honest, anybody that's doing ayahuasca now is, I would say the vast majority of them are just trying to get high, and they're trying to trip as a recreational thing at a rave or at a an Indian Burning Man. I would venture to say not that it doesn't happen, but not too many people are going to seek somebody to do this in a controlled and seek a spiritual journey. Now, that being said, I think they talk a lot about destroying the ego and losing the sense of self is the I don't know. You go back to the Timothy Leary thing and the LSD, tune on, tune in, and drop out in the counterculture in the 67, 66, and the Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, Grateful Dead, Haight Ashbury thing. I think that they kind of go hand in hand, if you will. The Electric Kool-Aid, so was that Ken Casey? It was the author, I believe. I'd have to look it up.
Well, you sent me some articles. Is that one of these articles?
Yeah, it's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was 1965 in between there.
The Legacy of the CIA Secret LSD Experiments in America. Is that the one?
There you go. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think it was a grander psyop.
I'm sharing my screen with you.
Yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It examined the abuses of the system against the individual. Is mine under the novel. He believed the key to individual liberation was psychedelic. That's how you destroyed what the man wanted you to be, or the ego, or the sense of self. To transcend your normal, blasey blah, Richard Nixon type, what they would perceive to be as their dad. The suits.
And I'll tell you from a personal experience, in high school I tried a lot of different drugs, even meth, but I never
joined the club.
Never cared about it. Thank God, glory to God on that. But acid is one of those things, and my bad trip experience was so bad that I think it attributed to my future anxiety, because I remember how I felt, and what I felt was we'd gone to see the movie. Now I'm not going to think of it. It was a De Niro movie and Al Pacino movie, and it was really good. It was in the 90s, and I had gone to see that movie, and they're right in an elevator together, and it was that. Now this was
Heat.
Heat. It was Heat. Thank you. They were right in the elevator together, and that image of the elevator they were showing one on the one side and one on the other side, and then the corner of the elevator is in between them. I couldn't get that. I could not get that out of my head for some reason. In my mind, I couldn't see anything different than that kind of thing, and I just kept making this tunnel weird thing in my mind, and I tried to lay down to sleep, and I became panicked, and so what happened? Well, let me finish what happened. What happened was I began to be really afraid that I would never sleep again, and if I did sleep, I would never dream. That was my fear in the moment. I was so fearful because I was a teenager living with my mom and dad. I woke my mom up, who was an ER nurse for years and a flight nurse for years. And I said, Mom, I don't like how I feel. I'm scared and I need to go to the ER. And she calls the ER and they're like, she'll be fine after 18 hours. I'm like, 18 hours of this? I said, please take me. Well, the people in the ER were friends with my mom. They gave me some benzos and put me to sleep, but I didn't believe it was going to work. I did not believe it was going to work. I was scared out of my mind. I was terrified. I'll never forget what I felt, what I thought, and what my fear was. And just kind of cool story, I ended up working with a lot of those same people in the ER later, and they were really good to me. And they didn't need to say, you bad kid on drugs, look at what's happened to you. I was terrified, and I never did it again. I never wanted anything mind-altering ever again. And I hear a lot of these stories about people who take ayahuasca say similar things. It's demonic, it's dark, and it brings the demons out, and they act like this is a good thing. And I'm very confused by that.
Well, they say, I don't know how true this is, but I have heard it said that if you drop acid more than 7 times, you're declared legally insane by the U.S. government. Now, if that stands to be true, I'm insane probably 700 times over. So I've had my fair share of trips, whether it be mushrooms or blotter acid or liquid acid or ayahuasca. And I will say this, it can be mind expanding, but I'm not going Joe Rogan on anybody, because I can honestly say I've had more bad trips than I have had good. You know, for any kid listening to this, I know that Joe Rogan makes it sound so cool and said I'm going to see clockwork elves, and, you know, you will see tracers and you will hallucinate. But, you know, and there is a spiritual world you can tap into. But let's be honest, not many people that are taking that stuff are really looking for any kind of, you know, I'm sure there are some, but most of them are just looking to dance and have a good time at a concert, and it's really detrimental.
But that is not, yeah, that is not the experience that they have. Exactly like you just said, it's detrimental. The experience that,
well, there's a reason why every Fish show and Grateful Dead show has a Red Cross tent set up, because they are anticipating a bunch of kids coming in there whacked out of their minds, and they're gonna need help. So, I mean, if you're pitching up before the show even starts, knowing that this is going to happen, you know, let's take the 40,000-foot view and say what's really going on here. You know, is this a mind control thing from the beginning? Because I'm looking at go with Timothy Leary and the CIA that I think anybody can pull up on a simple Wikipedia or Google search.
Right. Well, okay.
MK Ultra, all of that. I think it all ties.
This was my question here. Ayahuasca is made by indigenous people, and what is the difference between it says ayahuasca and DMT, so here's ayahuasca. Okay, so what's DMT? DMT is a simple molecule that is found in hundreds of plant species and also thought to be produced in tiny amounts in the brains of mammals, although that is hotly disputed. I like how they say that. Many believe that endogenous DMT might be involved in spiritual or out-of-body experiences. So do they think those people have more DMT than others? I mean, it's questionable, right?
Well, I think the ayahuasca plant contains an element of DMT, but there's a way you can smoke, you know, strain it, and, you know, pure DMT. You know, that's for chemists.
Sure.
I'm
not one. The only chemistry I did well in was organic, because it wasn't math based. I'm not good at math. Well, okay, so I'm gonna say supposedly, because I believe that's probably in our pineal glands. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But apparently these are two different things. But they're saying that DMT is also grown in certain plants, so it is similar. Or I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think it's like the difference between an opiate and an opioid. You can synthetically produce DMT, and you can find it in nature. I think the synthetic blend, just like you would find in methadone, is going to be a hell of a lot more controlled and more potent than what you're going to find. I mean, I think that's just common sense.
Okay, well, so when I've listened...
I could be wrong.
So when I've listened to certain stories of this, and what I love is Destiny Lab does one where they just they do podcasts and stuff, and they put up a half an hour of stories of people's ayahuasca experiences, and now of course they could have easily just picked out the negative ones. I'm not saying that every single one, but I'm saying they weren't just negative. The people themselves, who aren't God believers, talked about how it felt demonic and dark and like they were in hell at some points. And one of them also felt that he believed he was a god over a world or a country. And one of the girls there was a goddess, and they looked like Egyptian pharaohs, and the whatever you call the queen Pharaoh or whatever, and I'm thinking, well,
Your
that
sister or
sounds
whatever.
like implanted information. I mean, that's really odd. Or it's coming from fallen angels. That was my thought.
Well, yeah, who knows what's coming out of your subconscious and what's been programmed into you from birth and what's coming into the spiritual world. That's why I honestly say that, I'm not glorifying it. I've had pleasant experiences, but I've had more negative experiences. And, I think that's better left for people that have known this for hundreds of years, that are native or indigenous to that part of the area, and it's part of their religion, if you will. They do it once a year, sometimes twice a year. They go out in the desert. It's called a sweat lodge. Now, this is the exception to me. Just to me, I don't see anything wrong with that. But what I'm saying on a mainstream level with kids and culture, I wouldn't want my kids doing it. And maybe that's do as I say, not as I do type thing on my part, a little bit hypocritical. But after being through that and being through the Grateful Dead scene, I had a lot of great times. I met a lot of great people. And, there was something mind expanding. And I would never understand music the way I do without LSD or without mushrooms. That I do know. But at the same time, I think maybe I could have reached that without it. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough call. Like you said, maybe I didn't need that. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Well, you just said then you went on to say you don't know. So here's what you believe. You
Well,
believe that...
I feel that it helped me at that time, but I don't know that I necessarily needed it to eventually get to where I wanted to be. That's open for debate.
Right, and it is open for debate because, again, I'm certainly not here to tell anybody to do this. I'd say don't, because you don't know what you're inviting, and John can say whatever he wants. He's not going to be on. He's not on here to recommend it. By the way, he's not going to give you guys any shamans to go see. But if you want to talk to him and on his own, you guys are welcome to contact him, and he's his own person. But we talk about this for a reason, because we also both know that anything that's mind altering can cause severe problems in your life. I've seen it in myself. And he's seen it in himself, and that's why we're talking about personal experience.
Well, let me just say that absolutely, adults are adults. Kids should never mess with these kinds of things ever, under any circumstances at all. When their mind is still in a developmental mode, where you can stunt the progress of your brain's growth stages. Absolutely not. If that came off like that, I hope not, because it's not a good idea.
Okay. Brooke makes a good point, because she says it is open for debate because God will always get you when he's going to get you. Well, now here's what I say to that, though, Brooke. Yeah, it is Revel. Here's what I say to that, Brooke, that God makes good from bad. And I know that some people will understand this and some people won't. But what that means is, and what I try to give the best example of is, I married someone who purposely ended his life. But I wasn't, and I had two beautiful children, but I wasn't supposed to marry someone who was going to do that so that I could have those two beautiful children. And nobody would say that I was supposed to. But yet they'll say everything happens for a reason, or if you wouldn't have done that, you wouldn't have had those two beautiful children. But what God did is he made good from the bad choice I made in selecting a mate. Okay, so I didn't help him along the way. I did the opposite. I made things worse. It was horrible. So I didn't have, so if, like, for instance, if I had a bad acid experience, God wasn't like, here, take this acid, Aaron, so that you can have a bad acid experience, so that you can teach other people not to take acid ever again. That is not what God had for me. Now, and what I will tell you guys is, you have to pray for your own discernment and wisdom, and you have to decide what God has put you into and what he is saving you from, to know what that is for you. So if you really believe that you'd have never, and I'm not arguing with you, if you really believe that you would have never had that kind of musical knowledge, I would say that's God making good from bad. But you might say, I had to take it to have that experience. I believe God put that in my path. And I can't tell you you're wrong, because only you know your relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I can say that at times it was mind expanding, but, it was mind destroying. So, take that, 6 in one, half a dozen in the other.
But
I don't think it's.
But what did the fallen angels do in Enoch? They brought
bred with the women.
that is one thing they did. They brought knowledge that we didn't have.
Right, right.
So what you call
Good
mind
point.
expanding is knowledge that you didn't have.
Well, like you say, maybe all roads would have led to the same place.
Could have.
You know,
They could have.
could have possibility. Probably is the truth. The more I think about it, but you know, I mean, the past is the past, and like you say, you just got to try to, you know, make sense out of it somehow.
Exactly, and that's and what will happen is if you're still out there going, I'm going to do ayahuasca and LSD and smoke some crack and drink some beers and I'm okay with that because it's opening my mind. You're not in a place where God is probably reaching you very well. In fact, you're kind of going to the downward
Crack
spiral.
is whack. Crack
Well,
is whack.
You know what? I threw that in there for fun because it's not sure if it's happening or not, right? But if you're
Well,
in
Whitney
Hollywood,
Houston said that.
Well,
That's what Whitney Houston said. Crack is whack.
they had to get rid of her. She was a problem. But what I would say is, you know, if you're saying, you know, God, I want to learn from the past, He'll show you. Like He'll say, these things are things I didn't want for you, and these things are the things I did, and here's how we're going to fix that. And you're going to use those things. So,
Right.
for instance, you know, I went to rehab, but it wasn't for alcohol or drugs. It was for an eating disorder, and I have I very much will always love to talk to anybody about that. It is the most best kept secret because you can have one and you don't look like those rail thin people that go in and get feeding tubes, guys, and you can be sick. I had high blood pressure, 160 over 110. I had broken bones because my bones were depleted, but I didn't look like I needed to be hospitalized. Okay, so it is so deadly that nobody knows about it sometimes until it's too late. It causes lots of problems that could kill you just as easily as any drug, but nobody ever knows because you can easily have an eating disorder and go to work and be fine. You can easily have an eating disorder and nobody's going, you know, you're not really, these movies and TV shows and stuff, they don't portray it the correct, they make you either anorexic or bulimic, and there's many in-betweens with that. What I'll say about that is one thing you have to keep doing is eating. So these are the hardest problems to deal with.
Well, I never went to rehab. My rehab was pretty much full of just being locked up. And if anybody wants a real movie where you could watch what really happens to opiate addicts or pill addicts, is Requiem for a Dream with Jared Leto and Jennifer Connelly, where when it really shows what you go through when you're locked up and you're detoxing and your arm is infected or you have a toothache and nobody cares. You know what I mean? It is hell. Withdraw, you know, behind bars. And it's a good movie, you know, for people if they want to know the reality of where that road ends, you know, where the good times actually end up.
Of course, but here's the thing is, when there's two addictions that people, I don't think, handle well, especially in rehab centers, as sex addiction and eating disorders. Now, there's probably others. I mean, you could say all of them. They don't handle any of them well, especially the rehab I went to. There's a joke. But the point is because I went to a rehab and I had other addicts laughing about my eating disorder. Nobody took it seriously. These are people that are hardcore addicts, and they're laughing about my eating disorder. And that is really where it does. This is why it's deadly. No, you don't go through freaking hell on earth detox. But what you do is you go through hell on earth because you don't, it's a best kept secret, and you know, secrets are bringing demons all the time, and it's a super severe self-hatred. It's just a severe self-hatred to have an eating. You hate everything about yourself. It's literally is hell on earth. I totally think you're inviting demons. I truly believe I was just surrounded by them. I think they loved where I was back then. Satan loved where I was back then, and it really pissed him off when I changed my course and I purposely put on 30 pounds and I looked great. So you can imagine I was still pretty thin. So what I'm telling you is there's certain things, again, they're hard to quantify. You can qualify them, but they're hard to quantify. You can say you drink too much because you drink, period. I can't stop eating.
Yeah, if I could chime in on the bulimia thing, I'm a fat bastard, and I have no experience with that. But what I will say is I've had some girlfriends in my life that have that and have been cutters. And it is more, I've watched them own mental prison and withdraw when they're hurt or something triggers them. And I would venture to say that the bulimia and the cut worse, if not just as bad as any kind of chemical addiction that I've seen. That I would have to talk to these women and say, what's wrong? Like, why are you, some women I've had to have wear long sleeves around my kids because it got so bad, because their father hurt them when they were little, or, a family member. And I would see them get triggered by certain movies and yeah, I can attest that you think that I think, it's a mental prison. To me, I would describe it.
Right. And so, I was a cutter too, and it was bad, and it was so much self-loathing. I believe that probably other drug addicts have that kind of self-loathing too, but they're able to. The difference between what I did is, it didn't do anything. These people go, I cut myself just so I can feel. I cut myself because I hated my body. I would cut the word fat on my stomach. Right.
Well, I sat with some of my my exes in the counseling with them, and what I heard the counselors say was the cutting was more of a ritual, like a drug addict sticking themselves with a needle. It's something you did to release something inside you, is what I gathered from it. I mean, I can't speak, from a cutter's experience, but that's what I would heard the counselors say to the women.
Well, and maybe it caused for some people some kind, and maybe it did for me too, and I don't know. It's not, the thing is I can tell you, most of that I didn't enjoy. I got no pleasure out of restricting. I got no pleasure out of vomiting, and I got no pleasure out of cutting on myself. It was almost like it was a freaking chore. And yet I was a slave to it, for 12 years.
Well, one thing I learned about, in like counseling, and you have to see counselors when you're on methadone all the time, is even something as simple as thoughts can be addictive. No, you don't think you want to be negative person. I mean, you see it on YouTube, you see it in the streets, these negative channels, these negative energies. It's addicting. It really is. And you find some kind of zone to where you feel comfortable being negative, and you can relate that to the pain. Like they say, you might not like the pain, but you definitely don't hate it. It's you keep doing it, it's something that you keep going back to. So there's something in your mind that call it a ritual, call it pleasure and pain, or hurting yourself. Give it a name, but there's a reason people keep repeating.
Yep, and I will say real quick, in defense of my family, they just didn't know how to deal with it. God bless them, and we've talked about it. My mom refused to admit that she had an eating disorder. I have another sister with an eating disorder. And I have another sister who hates herself and might as well have, but she just hates herself. She's without the eating disorder. So there's some generational sin in that. But I've come loud and clear to my family, and they said, this is something that we have a problem with in this family. And I'm not going to be quiet about it. I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. And my mom literally was like, I didn't have anorexia. I'm like, yeah, you didn't eat anything but dinner, and you ran 12, 13, 14 miles every time you went running, and you never ate anything but at dinner time. That's restriction, and it's over-exercising. And it's called the female classic triad for a reason, because if you have an eating disorder, you over-exercise, and you have a low bone density, which is what I had. And I refused to believe it at first, too. They call it, classic female triad, when I broke my hip, of all things. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not me. At 27, I broke my hip, guys, for no other reason than running. I was a runner, too. So you look at these things, and they are a real thing. And my mom refused to believe it, and that was but I said, no, this is what we had, and now we can all, not all of us, but me and my mom, at least, we can talk about this openly.
Well, good for sharing these things, because it's just, I think you were going to do this on your own later, but maybe if there's any, kids watching that are going through something like this, or can relate to what anything you were saying, maybe we could put like an 800 number in the description or something if they need help to see somebody, a professional, you know what I mean? That if their family doesn't understand,
Well, and I've always told people, you can email me. I will call you if you want to, and I will pray with you. Or if that makes anyone uncomfortable, I'll just text, and I'll still pray for you. Or you can just email me if you don't want me to know your phone number. So I will do that. and in the email is in my description
stuff.
box. So, and it's also in my about. And
Good stuff.
We'll pray before we end this, but I will always do that. I would never, ever, nothing is too much for me in that department, guys. No, and, you know, unless you're not sincere, then, you know, then I'll know. But nothing is too much for me in that. It doesn't take very long to pray for somebody and with somebody. So anytime anybody needs that.
I never knew
that.
what to do for that. Yeah, because like you say, in defense of, it's hard for somebody not going through that to know what to say and the right things, because you're just not in that spot.
So you sent me some other articles, and I didn't want to not go over them. You sent me this one on Grateful Dead, and you sent me one on the Rolling Stones, again, Grateful Dead, some Timothy Leary quotes, and then I kind of already hit the ayahuasca versus DMT. So what do you want to say on this one about LSD and the Grateful Dead family?
Well, boy, I guess which one?
Can you see? I shared my screen with you. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can kind of see it, but I'm just trying to. There was a couple. One article was more poignant. It was the thumbprint.
Yeah, that's the one.
Was something big. Okay, good. If you just want, you know, the story goes, it was an Illuminati-like sect of elders that monitored the country's low-level acid. Now, you know, proving the worthiness, might a low-level head or deadhead, as it were, be invited to join the GDF, the Grateful Dead family. But first, new members had to pass a ritual or initiation, which was known as the thumbprint. And the thumbprint is a mega dose of LSD, 1,000 times stronger than the average street dose, as you can read there. Passing the thumbprint test is required before one is allowed to buy and sell weight, which means large quantity. You know, obviously, sell weight. And it was your ability to withstand the thumbprint, which was some kind of status symbol that your karma is clear, and you know, can't have spiritually impure people climbing the ranks of the Grateful Dead family. Now, I think that I know that is the Grateful Dead family. No one ever came to me and said, take the thumbprint, because I wasn't a high-level acid dealer. But I think that's where the CIA and the black ops kick in, and the money, where you have to it's initiation like anything else. It says right there, an Illuminati-like sect. So to say that wasn't a psyop on the minds of the people that were involved, I think would just be insulting your intelligence at this point. You know, it's just like anything else. You could take something good like the Grateful Dead and pervert it and try to just like call it the cabal or whatever you want to. You know, people that are out for money and, to capitalize something that was supposed to be about music and, I don't know if how good this free love thing was, but people just wanted to have a good time. But then there were gangsters that came in and wanted to dominate it because LSD was the crack of that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before cocaine in the streets, before heroin. Heroin was always around, but it was in the dirtier corners. LSD was mainstream. I mean, kids in high school, younger kids, everybody was doing it. And you don't see that today. You don't see that at all.
Well, now it's different. It's DMT. It's higher. It's stronger. It's LSD is like for babies. For kids.
Well,
I'm into the DMT
everything evolves, I guess.
I don't know if it's stronger, but it sounds like it is. Although it sounds like it does. It was the same stuff. I felt like I was in a hellish state. It sounds pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely you can have a bad trip. That's the thing about acid is you never know what you're. There's no test. There's no purification test. It's like Russian roulette every time. So it's like, if you're an adult, who am I to tell you what to do? But, there are studies that show if your mind is in the developmental stages as a child, it's the last thing you want to do is mess with stuff.
Well, I want to mention one more thing is, again, here's the thing about illicit drugs. Even illicit drugs, but essentially illicit drugs aren't this bad. You don't know what you're getting into. Because, again, you could say that about legal drugs too, guys. I agree with you. I'm not going to disagree with you. So let's not say that. We already know it. But what I'll say is you really don't know because you've seen it. You've seen instances And I'm not going to tell you to talk about it, but I know that you've seen instances where something has been put in a drug that will kill a person. What were you talking about? This really strong heroin that's out. Oh, a really strong, not heroin.
Oh, well, it's
fentanyl.
called carfentanil.
Yeah.
Carfentanil. Yeah, it's called carfentanil. It's 500 times more potent than regular fentanyl. And we can see now on the street, there's kids walking, they have fentanyl patches, they have fentanyl lollipops.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is for cancer patients that are dying. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's for people that are on death's door, that are in so pain. Nobody should be doing fentanyl, heroin for that matter. But I mean, the way I could see kids use it, you know, people could call you a narc, people can call you a snitch, but if you see a kid anywhere around fentanyl and you don't try to intervene, then shame on you. You're a piece of dirt, because that's a killer. And now this carfentanil's on the street. I saw Faith Goldie do a thing on it. I guess it's rampant in Canada. I mean, it's a killer. It'll put a horse down, a little teen or a little pack of it. I mean, it's death. It's death. And you don't know if you're doing. See, kids today, here's the thing, Aaron. Being through the whole opiate thing, you can't find, I mean, I'm sure people in the know can, okay, let me preface this, but most of the things that kids are doing, they think are heroin, is fentanyl. It's pronounced fentanyl. We all say fentanyl, but it's fentanyl.
Yes, it
and
is.
they think they're doing,
People say fentanyl.
they think they're doing heroin, yeah, and they think they're doing heroin, and they're not. They just don't know any better. And they know they're getting high, that's all they care about. But it's pharma making big money, the same as it ever was, to quote the Talking Heads, same as it ever was.
Yeah, same as it ever was. Well, yeah, and it is fentanyl, but that's fine. Everybody calls it fentanyl because everything's all
It's
alcohol,
just, yeah.
Whatever.
It's the same thing, alcohol.
So, but you've seen other things put in there that are, deadly, like just could kill you because they're intending to.
They call it a hot shot. It happens. You can put anything in there. House cleaning products. I mean, you have no idea what you're getting. And the same goes for meth. Meth is just, anybody who's cooked it or been around it knows it's household detergents and Sudafed. I'm not going to tell you how to make it, but it's just a bunch of toxic chemicals that makes you feel good for a hot second and then destroys your life.
Yeah, it's destructive to your brain and your dopamine, your ability to even make dopamine anymore.
Well, I think it's say that methamphetamine actually puts holes in your brain, the same as ecstasy and things of that nature will actually eat your brain away.
We didn't even get into that, but we're not going to because. Yeah. So these are a lot of heavy topics, and while it's not, here's the thing I'm going to say to you guys, it's not heavy for me anymore. There's nothing I'm talking about tonight that I have not had very good, strong conversations with the Lord and friends of mine. There's no secret I'm telling tonight, because some people say, well, you really get personal, and they're friends of mine. They'll say, well, you really kind of don't need to get that personal. These are not things that are a secret. I don't have secrets, but I don't have to tell everything. Not everybody needs to know everything, but what I do this for is because there are people, it's a manifestation of the same problem, whether it's a drug, an eating disorder, alcohol, or just despair, or sleeping too much, or watching too much TV, whatever it is that somebody is idolizing over the Lord. That is coming from the same basic problem for all of us, and it's a problem of whether it's power or control or whatever, but it's very basic. And we all manifest it in different ways. So I can relate to somebody with an eating disorder because I've had one, but I can relate to anybody with an addiction because we all come from the same sin. It's a sin problem. And when we come to the Lord and we ask him to break these strongholds for us, he will, whether it happens overnight, which is not usually the case, or over time. And so do you want to say anything before we close and I say a prayer?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to stop these plugs coming in that are, ruining families and ruining lives. Best thing you could do is go to DonaldTrump.com and make a small contribution to build this darn wall and get it up, because he's the one man standing up against these cartels and not selling out to big pharma, and that's just a fact. Yep.
And we know that it was the same with the crack epidemic back in the 80s, and they killed that one guy that was trying to talk about it at the time. Hold on, my throat is now. This is where they get you. I'm trying to pray, and now I've got something in my throat.
Build the wall. Where we go one.
Here we go all. Okay. All right. God, we are all broken and we are all sinners. Not one of us is better than the other. Not one of us is worse. There's nothing that any of us has done that cannot be forgiven. There is nothing that any of us has done that we cannot repent from and come to you, Jesus, for you to break that guilt or stronghold or whatever it is, addiction, and whatever's fighting me is in my throat. I'm going to keep going, guys. God, you are bigger than this. Whatever's fighting me, you're bigger than this. We love you. We know, Jesus, that you died for us and that by your blood, we can control whatever it is that wants to control us. And if we're looking to these other things to find truth or enlighten ourselves, God, you can do that. Jesus, you can do that. Holy Spirit, you can do that. We should be looking to no other spirit than the Holy Spirit. And so I pray for everyone in the chat that if we said anything wrong, anyone listening, that it would be struck from their memory. We want only truth to be told here, but we don't always get it right. So we just pray that we correct ourselves or it's struck from the memory. And we pray for anyone who's struggling with any addictions, eating disorder, or other problem, that we can work with them if they want. You can email me. I will pray with you. But I'm praying over you all right now, and we love you enough that we do care. And when we speak life and truth, it's because we care, and it's not always easy to hear. So I pray that those who need to hear it. And we love you guys. Full armor of God. Holy Spirit, cover us. And thank you, Jesus. You died a death we fully deserve. And we thank you for that. And in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Oh my gosh,
God
my
bless.
eye is watering and
You're
everything.
wonderful. You're wonderful. You went on and on and on.
Yeah.
You're wonderful. Thank you.
So I'm like, I don't know what's in my throat, but I'm just going to, whatever they're trying to, and we do battle these things. And the more we speak truth, the more we're going to get hate and the more we're going to get attacked. But we're still out here.
What is it? We don't battle against the flesh. We battle against the higher principalities, something like that.
Yeah, that's Ephesians 6. And it's not flesh and blood, but it's not, our battle is not against flesh and blood. But I also know that there is no weapon formed against me that I will prosper. I will prosper, because there's can be no weapon formed against me when it comes to my Lord. And as for me and my household, we serve the Lord. That's what we do here. So
walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
I actually still love that song. Oh my God. Anyway, all right.
Gangster's Paradise. Coolio. Yeah.
I'll probably please go check out my raffle so I can fill that up, guys. It's silver. Why would you not want to pay $6 for a spot for 2 ounces of silver? Come on, let's fill that up. 6 spots left.
Yeah, get up off that cash.
It's not hard to go over there and figure out how to do it, but just the community part, I know, apparently it is hard. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not being sarcastic. Apparently people don't see it.
If you don't deserve $6 for tonight, I don't know who.
Well, the $6 comes to me, but the silver goes out to somebody else. This is an exchange. You're exchanging your dollars for real money. So I'm grateful to everybody who's been here tonight. And John, I think you'll probably next time come on with me on Sunday. If you're available, will that be all right with you?
Always.
All right. Well, everybody have a blessed night. And John and I we're gonna throw in the towel for now, but we love you and we're praying for you. God bless everybody. Good night.